Kia ora and welcome to Trust. I'm here with Richard Prosser from Chief Investigator with Immigration New Zealand. And we're going to talk about all things immigration in this edition and talk about some of the scenarios that occur in the immigration space. Well, welcome, Richard. Look, I'll just start off with, how do Crime Stoppers support Immigration New Zealand?
Well, they're essential in supporting the integrity of the immigration system. As one of our biggest sources of reports and information, particularly on breaches of immigration legislation. Crime Stoppers record the information in its true form. They don't change or summarise it in any way, which is really important to making sure that we're actually getting the accurate reports. They also use their presence to raise awareness in issues such as migrant exploitation and trafficking in persons, which is incredibly valuable in spreading that information to the public.
What sort of information do Immigration New Zealand investigate? Like, what do they take beyond just the report?
Oh, all sorts. The one people think about mainly really is people unlawfully in New Zealand or people working outside their visas. But we also deal with fraudulent visa applications. Providing false or misleading information in a visa application is actually quite a serious offence. And it's criminal, and people don't realise that the Immigration Act covers a lot of criminal offending, and most of those criminal offences are far more serious than people kind of assume. We also deal with serious migrant exploitation, trafficking in people where it's cross-border, so people coming into New Zealand who are being trafficked. There are people always looking to shortcut the immigration system, but the bottom line is that migrants are more vulnerable than citizens. They rely on their visas, or many of them do rely on their visas, and so they're far more vulnerable to exploitation. People would be unscrupulous in using that to manipulate them.
So have you got any examples of the outcomes that the information from immigration received through Crime Stoppers? Examples of what you guys look into?
Yeah, lots. I mean, we get a lot of reports of fraudulently obtained visas, people working illegally, but there's the serious criminal offending I was speaking about earlier on, migrant exploitation, where people are really suffering at the hands of what people manipulating them. So a good example is something that's actually ongoing at the moment. A single dairy worker, so it's the only employee for the dairy. They're working at that dairy, they've been there for 6 years. They are working 7 days a week, and they're working 80 to 100 hours per week, but being only paid for 40. They were getting no annual leave, no public holiday, and outside that, they're actually a domestic servant for the family that were employing them. So we calculate they're owed about $360,000. Now we've managed, because of Crime Stoppers information that came to us, we've managed to investigate that. We've managed to sort out that person's visa situation so they can now work for another employer, and we can hold those employers accountable.
So just taking that a level further, what do Immigration New Zealand do with the information they receive from Crime Stoppers?
Well, the first thing we do is read it. Everything we get is put through a triage system, and it's allocated to the appropriate team. If it doesn't sit with immigration, then we'll refer it to partner agency. But by far, most of the stuff we get does come through for immigration, but there's different teams inside immigration who do different things. So if it was to do with visas, then the compliance team might help that person correct their visa status or assist them in going home if that's what needs to be done. Investigations, the criminal offending that I spoke about will come to an investigations team. We've got a risk and verification team who may look at adjusting immigration settings, or the risk rules we call it, according to information that's come in. We'll send information into our intelligence group, which will allow us to adjust those settings moving forward and understand how the system might be being exploited. None of it's ignored.
If somebody wants to report anonymously, can Immigration New Zealand still use that information? Is it still useful?
Yes, of course. I would say safety first. If people want to remain anonymous, then that's the whole point of Crime Stoppers for me. We would much rather have the information anonymously than not at all. I would say though, if you don't need to remain anonymous, or you're comfortable talking to somebody, it can be incredibly helpful for us to be able to call you and just clarify things. And there may be other information which you haven't thought was important, which might come out in those conversations. But Crime Stoppers won't give us anything that they think might accidentally identify a person if that person wants to remain anonymous. And we certainly make no effort to try and identify anybody for any information that comes through from Crime Stoppers, obviously because that's safely open.
What would you say to someone trying to decide whether to report something but not sure if it's serious enough?
Look, people generally know if something isn't right. They might not know what the offence is, or even if it is an offence. If it's not right, they report it. It doesn't matter if you're not sure which agency it sits with or what the actual offence is. It might be a piece of a puzzle. And as I said earlier on, migrants are generally more vulnerable than citizens. So it might actually be very serious offending that you've only seen a part of. But if we don't know, we can't do anything about it. So I'd urge you to report it.
Look, thanks, Richard. That's really been appreciated. I think that's given some insights to people, especially if they don't deal with immigration on a day-to-day basis. So that's it for this month. Ngā mihi to everyone, and we'll hopefully have another publication in about 3 months' time, so look out for it, and we'll see you then.